In 1808, two Frenchmen decided to settle a love triangle, the only reasonable way they could think of, by shooting at each other from hot air balloons 2,000 feet above Paris. One of them missed, the other one didn't. And that's not even the strangest duel on this list. People used to kill each other over flower arrangements, Greek spelling, and waltzing technique. Today we're looking at 6 duels with outcomes so unexpected, so ridiculous, that they'd be rejected from a movie script for being too unbelievable. And every single one of them actually happened. Let's start with a duel that proves the most dangerous thing in a French bar has always been a bruised ego. Two men, Melfort and L'Enfant, were playing a game of billiards in the commune of Maisonfort. They got into an argument. Nobody remembers what the argument was about. Maybe a bad shot. Maybe someone nudged the table. It doesn't matter. What matters is that these two men decided they had to duel over it. Standard procedure for 19th century France. But here's the thing. Instead of using swords or pistols like civilized men trying to murder each other, they decided to use billiard balls. The weapons were sitting right there on the table. Why walk to the armory when you've got ammunition in the side pocket? They set up according to the standard rules of dueling. 12 paces apart, seconds in attendance, the whole formal production. They drew lots to see who would throw first. Melfort won. He picked up his billiard ball, looked his opponent dead in the eye, and reportedly said, "I'm going to kill you on the first throw." And then he did exactly that. The ball struck L'Enfant square in the forehead. He dropped dead on the spot. One throw. Game over. Now you might think winning a duel means you get to walk away a free man. Not this time. The authorities took one look at the situation, decided that killing someone with a billiard ball didn't count as an honourable duel, and arrested Melfort for manslaughter. So the man who won the duel ended up in prison. Which, honestly, is a fitting end to a fight that started over a game of pool. If the billiard ball duel was over too fast, this next one had the opposite problem. It wouldn't end. In 1794, a young French officer named Dupont was ordered by his general to deliver an unpleasant message to a fellow officer, a man named François Fournier Sarlevez. Fournier was a notorious hothead, described by Napoleon's own staff as the worst subject in the Grande Armée. He'd already killed a young man named Blum in a duel over practically nothing, and the whole town of Strasbourg was in mourning. Dupont delivered the message. Fournier, furious at the news, decided to take it out on the messenger. He challenged Dupont to a duel. Dupont accepted. They fought. Both survived. And that should have been the end of it. But Fournier wasn't satisfied. He demanded a rematch. They fought again, then again, and again. Eventually, the two men sat down and drew up an actual contract, a formal agreement to keep trying to kill each other. The terms were specific. Whenever they were stationed within 90 miles of one another, they were obligated to meet halfway and fight. The only acceptable excuse was active military duty. They would continue until one of them was dead. Over the next 19 years, while the Napoleonic Wars raged across Europe, Dupont and Fournier fought more than 30 duels. They used swords, sabres, rapiers, lances and pistols. They fought on horseback and on foot. They fought in barns and in forests. They even started dining together the night before their duels, because apparently trying to kill someone for 2 decades breeds a certain intimacy. The thing that finally ended it? In 1813, Dupont got Fournier in a pistol duel through a clever trick. He made Fournier waste his shot on a decoy, then walked up to him with his own pistol still loaded. Rather than pull the trigger, Dupont told Fournier he was getting married and would really like to stop doing this. Fournier, staring down the barrel, agreed. They shook hands. It was over. The story was so absurd that Joseph Conrad turned it into a short story, and Ridley Scott made it into his first feature film, The Duelists, in 1977. Sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction, but in this case, fiction had to tone it down to be believable. Before he was the great emancipator, Abraham Lincoln was, and there's no polite way to say this, one of the greatest trolls in American political history. In 1842, the Illinois State Bank collapsed and stopped accepting its own paper currency from citizens. The state auditor, James Shields, supported this decision. Lincoln, then a young Whig lawyer, was not impressed, but instead of writing a sober policy critique, Lincoln invented a fake persona, a rural widow named Rebecca, and published a series of anonymous letters in the local newspaper absolutely roasting Shields. He called him a fool, He mocked his vanity around women. He even wrote fake dialogue where Shields swoons over his own looks. Mary Todd, Lincoln's on-again fiancée, got in on it too, writing her own savage letters under the same pen name. Shields found out who was behind it and was livid. He challenged Lincoln to a duel, and Lincoln, who thought the whole practice was ridiculous but couldn't back down without losing face, accepted. As the challenged party, Lincoln got to pick the weapons. He could have chosen pistols. Instead, he chose cavalry broadswords of the largest size. This was not random. Lincoln stood 6 feet 4 inches tall. Shields was 5'9". Lincoln's arms were so long he could practically hit you from the next county. He later admitted the strategy bluntly. "I didn't want the damn fellow to kill me," which I think he would have done if we had selected pistols. On September 22nd, 1842, the two men met on an island in the Mississippi River. The crowd was enormous. Half of Springfield had travelled to watch. As they faced each other, Lincoln casually lifted his broadsword overhead and hacked through a tree branch well above Shields' head. The message was clear: "I can reach you anywhere, and you cannot reach me." Shields' friends pulled him aside. Whatever they said worked. A truce was reached. But Lincoln being Lincoln, the day couldn't end without a prank. As the crowd on the riverbank watched the returning boat, they saw what appeared to be a bloody body slumped over the bow. People screamed, people ran. When the boat docked, they discovered it was a log wearing a red shirt. Lincoln was so embarrassed by the whole episode that he almost never spoke of it again. Years later, when an officer asked him about it in the White House, Lincoln's face went dark, and he refused to discuss it. But here's the kicker. 20 years later to the day, Shields was a Union general, and Lincoln, now president, approved his promotion. The two men who almost killed each other over a newspaper column ended up on the same side of a war. Of all the reasons two people have ever tried to stab each other, this one might be the pettiest, and also the most fabulous. In 1892, the city of Vienna was preparing for the International Exhibition of Music and Theatre, the artistic event of the decade. Two of the most powerful women in Austrian high society had been given leadership roles: Princess Pauline von Metternich, granddaughter of the man who literally shaped post-Napoleonic Europe, and Countess Anastasia Kielmansegg, wife of the governor of Lower Austria. They got into a fight over the flower arrangements. Nobody recorded what the actual disagreement was: roses versus lilies, centerpieces versus garlands. The historical record is silent on the specifics. What we do know is that the argument escalated beyond reason, and Princess Metternich, who was 56 years old and had been described in the press as having a courage which borders on insanity, challenged the Countess to a duel with swords. Since dueling was illegal in Austria, the whole party travelled to Vaduz, the capital of Liechtenstein, to settle things properly. Their seconds were both women, Princess Schwarzenberg and Countess Kinsky. And overseeing the medical side was Baroness Lubinska, a Polish noblewoman with a medical degree. The Baroness had seen battlefield wounds go septic from dirty fabric being driven into the flesh. Her professional recommendation? Fight topless. And so they did. The male servants were ordered to turn their backs and stand at a distance. The two noblewomen picked up their rapiers and went at it. After a few exchanges, the princess took a cut to the nose, the countess a stab to the arm. First blood was drawn. Princess Metternich was declared the winner. Then they embraced, kissed, made up, and the Baroness dressed their wounds. The story became a sensation across Europe. It was called the Emancipated Duel because every participant, duelists, seconds, and the presiding doctor, was a woman. It inspired a wave of paintings, postcards, and stage performances. Princess Metternich later denied the whole thing ever happened, calling it a ridiculous invention by Italian journalists. Which, honestly, is exactly what you'd say whether it happened or not. Geoffrey Hudson was 18 inches tall. He entered the court of King Charles I by jumping out of a pie at a royal banquet. He became one of Queen Henrietta Maria's closest companions, and he was tired of people making fun of him. One person who would not stop was Charles Crofts, a young officer in the Royal Guard. Crofts found it hilarious that Hudson had reportedly lost a fight with a turkey. He brought it up constantly. He made it the centerpiece of his comedy routine. Hudson finally snapped and challenged Crofts to a duel. Crofts thought this was another joke. He showed up to the dueling ground carrying a water pistol. Hudson was not laughing. He demanded a real duel, with real pistols, on horseback. This was a masterstroke. Crofts was large and slow on a horse. Hudson, meanwhile, was a tiny, fast-moving target, practically impossible to hit from the saddle. They charged. Crofts missed. Hudson did not. He shot Crofts through the heart, killing him instantly. The man who brought a water pistol to a duel died. The man who had been mocked for losing to a turkey walked away without a scratch. If that's not the definition of an unexpected outcome, nothing is. We started this video 2,000 feet above Paris, so let's end it there. Monsieur de Grandpré and Monsieur Le Pic were both in love with the same woman, a dancer at the Paris Opera named Mademoiselle Tirevite. She had been sleeping with both of them. When this came to light, the men decided to duel. But a regular duel on the ground, they felt, would be beneath men of their intellect. They had elevated minds. They needed an elevated battlefield. They chose hot air balloons. On May 3rd, 1808, a massive crowd gathered near the Tuileries Gardens to watch as the two men, each accompanied by a co-pilot, because apparently peer pressure was also elevated, climbed into their balloon baskets and began to rise. They weren't aiming for each other. They were aiming for each other's balloons, with blunderbusses. At about 2,000 feet, a signal was given. Le Pic fired first. He missed. De Grandpré fired back and didn't. Le Pic's balloon ripped open, collapsed, and the basket tipped. Le Pic and his co-pilot fell to their deaths on the rooftops of Paris. De Grandpré floated gently back to Earth, alive, victorious, and presumably still in love with Mademoiselle Tirevite. The co-pilot who fell with Le Pic had agreed to be there voluntarily. He didn't even get to date the dancer. Billiard balls, broadswords, balloons, flower arrangements, a 19-year grudge, an 18-inch man on horseback. The history of dueling proves one thing beyond any doubt. People will find any excuse and any weapon to settle a score. And the results are almost never what anyone expected. If you enjoyed this, hit subscribe. We'll be back with more stories that are too ridiculous to be made up. Because they weren't.